Clay Henry from Hogs Illustrated joining us here on Halftime, along with Matty T, Drew Barrett, and me, Phil Elson. I'm live at Jersey Mike Subs on Tawnytown Road, Tawnytown Boulevard. We got to get the names of the roads right here in Springdale for the annual Day of Giving. Clay, what's going on, man? I know you had a busy day in Fayetteville yesterday. Football practice, a little bit of the baseball game. Which we hit first?
I was hoping to see a lot of the baseball game, but I kind of like, okay, I'm gonna kind of use an hour and a half of baseball, and then like the first 30 minutes was the top of the first, so I didn't get to see as much as I wanted to because it was a long day. I did I guess I did radio with Ty and Drew in the morning, and I went and saw my tax accountant, which that turned out all right. Always like it when it turns out the way you're supposed to. Won't go into details, but then I went to my office for a little while. There is an office in Fayetteville that I occasionally go to, and I did that yesterday, saw some people. People are kind of trickling back into office life again, which is really nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
feels like a little bit of normalcy, though. It also takes some adjustment when you've been working at home for like the last 2 years, and now you're back around a lot of people again.
You know, I had an office for years and years and years, and I would just go in there and sign paperwork. But I did all my writing from home in kind of a sterile environment. I mean, it was like quiet.
Too quiet.
No, that's just the way I like it. And then when I go to a press box and somebody makes a noise around me, I snap my head around and give them kind of a dirty stare. It's like, hey, we're working here. So I'm not. That's the problem with working in a sterile environment where you're used to just being just so peaceful. I mean, I hear a bird every once in a while. That's all I hear in the woods in Norfolk. So yeah, but back to. Was there a question in there, or was that just?
So what were we going to? I think we should hit on football first because the baseball game. Good. I don't know how much to glean from it, but we had Coach Sam Pittman on yesterday, and before the start of the resumption of spring practice, the fourth practice. So you're able to see the whole thing, though, right? You can actually watch all the practice.
I left a little bit before the end. They were kind of winding down, like the last 4 or 5 minutes, so I missed a little bit of that to kind of make my exit, head south to Baum Walker Stadium. But, yeah, I spent a lot of time watching the offensive line. I'm kind of fascinated by this second group because they look like, I remember doing an interview with Frank Ragnow, and he's like, what do you think Sam Pittman is gonna do? And he says he's going to bring in freaks. And that's what – now I don't see it on the defensive line yet. That hasn't really taken effect, and that's the next thing that has to happen. But if you go across the second offensive line, and the first group is ahead of these guys because they have experience, and experience is more important than just raw talent in the offensive line. But from left tackle across, Devin Manuel, who's like 360, Jalen St. John, who's like 335. Then Marcus Henderson, who's not nearly as big as those guys, but he's really quick. They've got him kind of in a grand experiment at center that seems to be working. And then you've got Imarian Harris at right guard, who's 355, 360, and can move, and is just, like one of those freak guys. And then you got Tykeus Crawford, who's lost down to about 350, 348, something like that. And that's where it's going to be sooner rather than later. Ricky Stromberg is clearly, the man at center. And he, as long as he's upright and moving, he's the center. But any of these other guys, if, they get a blip, something happens and, they sprain a knee or something and miss a game, one of these other guys is going to get in there. And it'll be like the Wally Pipp deal. They may never get their spot back because these guys are animals, and they're just massive. I was watching practice with James Shebest, who an old friend of mine from his playing days of being in the flex bone with Brad Taylor and catching all those passes, the only receiver out. And then he, I guess he got his start in coaching in junior college around Sam Pittman. I'm not sure they worked together, but they, were around each other, became great friends. through the years, they've never really worked together. But he was at Arkansas, Memphis, Virginia Tech. He's out of coaching and has moved back to Hot Springs. And Sam, they saw each other not too long ago, and I think he got a tour of Sam's new house on Lake Hamilton. Sam invited him to come spend a couple of days. Well, yesterday we just watched practice together. There was a great fascination. Of course, he's a special teams coach and coach receivers and tight ends at different times. But when Max Fletcher came out and started taking some of those Australian rules punts, he lit up. I mean, he said he had a guy just like him from Australia at Memphis, and I think was an All-American. And he said, this guy is the real deal. I mean, he was just doing these little punch shots end over end, and they were going 55, 60 yards and landing, like 2 yards from the corner pylon.
Goodness.
I mean, oh, no, it was a show. He did it about 4 or 5 straight times. And Reed Bauer is trying to hold him off, and he did well too. I mean, I thought great hang time. His punts were more in the middle of the field. But when you angle one to the sideline like that, there is no return. There's nothing you can do with that except get out of the way. It's going to bounce out of bounds, or it's going to be down. But they are unbelievably high, and they go end over end. That Australian rules style. So, his story is that his dad. You hear Rosie, our lab. She doesn't like the lightning, the thunder, rolling through Norfolk right now. His dad is like the Michael Jordan of Australian rules football. I mean, it's just if he walks in, like a restaurant in Australia, everything stops. And so his lineage is just he's got an older brother that's the punter at Cincinnati, but I know y'all didn't really expect this to be a dissertation on Australian rules punting, but that's kind of that was one of my major takeaways yesterday.
Well, Clay, I didn't have on the agenda today to have a Tom Hornsby, who's the Memphis punter, and Coach Shebest reference on the show today, but glad we could mark those two off. And
you had to give the name. I just knew that James said he had a great Australian rules punter.
And
you saw him, right? He was the real deal.
He was phenomenal, and it was shocking to a lot of people and a lot of his teammates. I was in school at about the same time. I think he was 2-3 years older than me, so he was a senior, I think, my freshman or sophomore year, and he was just phenomenal. We were all shocked that he didn't really get a shot at the NFL level, but knowing some of his teammates, everybody respects Coach Shebest. I mean, I don't know if a single former player that disliked him.
Yeah, he's and he, we talked about his time here at Arkansas, and both as a player, he went through some of his game. I'm gonna write a column. I've got a whole bunch of stuff from him, and but he's retired now. There may be somebody that calls him and gets him out of retirement. And he was taking notes and doing some due diligence on what Arkansas was doing offensively and in special teams. And he's going to be around, I guess, 2 more days. And but he did say that his house in Hot Springs isn't nearly what the head coach's house is on the lake. He said it was something to behold. He's seen the Razorback, all that stuff. But yeah, it's this football team is they've taken another step forward. We still got to see them in full pads, which I guess starts tomorrow, and then there'll be a big scrimmage Saturday, which is closed to everyone. And then I guess it's the next Saturday that, people need to come, and it'll be open. And I would encourage people to make the trip and to see it, because it's fun. See Hornsby play some wide receiver. He played both quarterback and receiver yesterday. And, James and I were talking about that guy's got to get on the field. I mean, he's the fastest player on the field. Like what I see at linebacker, Bumper Pool, and, and Pooh at the other side. You got one linebacker named Pooh, the other linebacker named Bumper. Now, there won't be anybody that has anything like that. Pooh and Bumper, let's go.
That's great. All right, we'll take the break, and we've got Clay for another segment here. Hey, don't forget, You get the furnace for free at Bud Anderson Heating and Cooling when you buy a new qualifying system from the official heating and cooling provider of the Arkansas Razorbacks. That's right, a free furnace when you buy a new system from Bud Anderson. There's no down payment, no interest for 72 months on qualifying systems, and a 12-year parts and labor warranty. Get the furnace free when you buy a new system from Bud Anderson, where one call does it all. 855-GO-CALL-BUD or GoCallBud.com. Clay brings up Australian rules football as our new Australian punter apparently has got the big connection to it. And I don't know if you've ever watched it, Drew. I wouldn't
hard
say
to follow.
I grew up on Australian rules football, but back in the day when ESPN didn't have all the sports that they have now, and they did tractor pulls and things like that, and roller derby, Australian rules football was stuff to watch. It was fun. We'll be right back. Clay Henry with us for this last segment here on Halftime. Clay, I want to dig a little more into spring practice here, since you had your eyes on the team yesterday for their fourth spring practice. Coach Pittman said yesterday, and Drew asked the question straight up, is there any other running backs that have kind of taken the lead as far as who might be number one for this team? Because you never quite knew if there was a number one running back last year. Sometimes it felt like Traylon. Sometimes it felt like Dominique. Sometimes it felt like Rocket. And Coach Pittman was up front. He said Rocket Sanders has a leg up on just about everybody else. And the way that he said it makes me feel like there's a lot of room for Rocket to grow as a running back. Coach Pittman said, Clay, that he no longer looks like a slot receiver learning to be a running back.
No, and you can say the same thing about A.J. Green, because he always was kind of slight of built. He's bulked up. A.J. and Rocket, and the freshman Dubinion, he looks like he's got the jets. I've seen some nice things from Javion Hunt, who we didn't hear much from last year because, they had enough. Don't forget about Dominic Johnson, though. I mean, it's when he's back and he's rehabbing from, like a scope surgery, and he's going to be fine. It's nothing to be concerned of, but he won't do anything this spring. But he's the man to me. And he's not out there, so you don't want to call him the number one, right?
Right.
But his ability to block, they're all trying to get to his standard. That's what they're trying to do, so that it is an equal competition. But when he was healthy last year, he ran over people. He just wiped people out in pass protection. And it's like there'd be a busted play and the ball's laying there on the ground. He'd just pick it up and then he'd just start running over people. It reminded me of Derrick Henry. And that to me is not like any of the others. Now, Rocket, he can be all of that, and he's got those wide shoulders, and like you say, he's built different now. He's got the hands. He's played receiver. So, and Phil, are you eating right now?
No, I think that's I thought I heard some candy. No, it's not.
Sorry,
me.
that's my microphone's actually off on the air, but I was chewing on a piece of hard candy. I forgot that you guys can still hear it. I'll move the mic away, but it's that time of day.
That wasn't on the air. It was just for me, right?
Yeah, it was just like that's a little butterscotch.
I thought maybe a molar got loose while you were talking there, Clay. Sorry.
Wasn't me. Oh, hey, I've got one less molar after 2 weeks ago.
I know.
There's just a hole there. Yeah. Well, yeah, but the running back's not the problem. They got him, and they Jimmy Smith seems like he's finding more, and his ability to recruit and develop players. They've got a good staff. I'd see so much that I like. I watched a little bit of Deke Adams, new defensive line coach. He knows what he's doing. He's a veteran. The question is, can he go recruit some freaks? Because that's the missing link on this team is, freakish defensive linemen. And I looked at the secondary yesterday. I thought that's going to be fine. McLaughlin and Ladarius Bishop are, they need to keep those guys healthy. Find a couple more corners, and they probably will. Jaden Johnson has stayed at that 220. They were worried that he might gain some that he wouldn't be able to play in the secondary, but he was playing safety nickel. That kind of position looks great there. look like they have enough tight ends. That was a concern. They got more coming, all of them 4 stars. Wide receiver looks fine. It's it's a good-looking team, and they know what they're doing. They're doing the same thing. Oh, and I guess Cody Kennedy to me is like Sam Pittman Jr. out there coaching the offensive line. It is such a fun thing to watch. Just make it through spring without injuries. I saw Mateo Soli go down with a knee injury. I don't think serious. He just kind of iced it down on the sideline. But you get through spring, you don't lose anybody. This team will win a lot of games next year.
Yeah, Clay, I think they definitely will. They're primed for a great season. Now, something away from spring football. Over the weekend, and it's been a topic, we've talked about it on the show Monday and Tuesday. Over the weekend, I stumbled upon the old nickname for Arkansas, the Porkers. What do you remember that, and why did it stop, and can I bring it back?
It's not coming back.
Oh.
But it was
very disappointed.
That was it was, you need something to fill out headlines, and it was not really something in stories. It was a headline trick.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a hog, you're made out of pork, right?
Yeah.
So porkers, so you wouldn't want your women's team to be called porkers, right?
No.
So you just can't use it. And it just kind of, why did it fall away? Because it was probably distasteful in some way. And I'm not going to say that you're from somewhere else and you don't get it.
but that's
I
I'm from
risk
somewhere
my
else
case.
and I don't get it. I get it.
Yeah, so
That's fair. I'll let it die.
I think it was
You said
probably
it's
used
denied.
more elsewhere than it was in Arkansas. I think those Texas papers loved it. And it bled into, then some others started using it, and everybody's like, nah, we're not going to do that anymore. And
all you got to say then is the Texas papers loved it, and we can never use it again.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That's pretty much the description that we would need.
Yeah, they probably used it in the Memphis paper,
Finally
too.
here, the top teams in college basketball have been determined, and the Final Four is set. Looking to wager on these games or the national championship? Head over to betonline.ag on your desktop or your mobile device and sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV to get started. That's BLEAV. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all your updated odds and info, along with player props and new contests throughout the year. It's the best source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and everyone's favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so join today. Learn why everyone is saying BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.